Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome back to another weekly outlook. We're going to do a top-down analysis as I always do, and we're going to start off here on the monthly as well. Monthly picture does not change much between videos, so I'm going to make this very quick. We have our bullish leg. We've come into bearish PDAs here, right, which is this imbalance and order block here. Price previous month, you can see, has just closed out as this long leg doji, right, taking buy side liquidity into that bearish PDA. We have been bullish though. Okay, so what do I feel about the monthly? As I've written here, price is at a point where I can see it going both ways. Okay, because we're well within a premium here. We've come into those bearish PDAs, taken buy side liquidity. Price could possibly play out the pullback scenario, right? Pulling back towards discount where we have draws on liquidity down in this area, right? We have this BPR with this imbalance overlapping. Price could well and truly begin a pullback. Obviously, it'd take many months to reach this point, but that may happen as a reaction from this zone. Now also we have this weak high because we have this curved high here where it's more like a trend line sort of liquidity here. Price ultimately could be heading towards this buy side liquidity high here, which is the aim of this bullish momentum. So we could take out this formation here, or we could see this resistance here and continue pulling back, coming for the sell side liquidity from these previous lows here into this zone. Okay, so that's the monthly outlook. So let's go down to the weekly. Let's see what that looks like for us. Now, although the monthly, we look like we could go both ways potentially, right? We're about to reverse. The weekly is still bullish. The weekly bias and weekly structure is still looks to be controlled by our bullish PDAs. Okay, so you can see all of these PDAs I've drawn out. We've got our order block here with imbalance. Price has been respected. You can see how we're making higher highs here as well and higher lows. Bullish structures and bullish PDAs so far being respected. We have pulled back down to this discount here. We have our order block and imbalance, right? We seem to be respecting that midline so far. Now let's discuss the candles themselves. We had that bearish deeper push last week. Okay, came below these weekly lows, deeper into the PDA here. Price opened up this week and immediately went bullish. So you can see we created that top wick here, right? So we retracted, pulled back essentially into this bearish candle, right? Which is a signal to possibly head lower. So we may be heading lower for this previous weekly low for us to create the wick on this weekly candle. We have a small one now, so we'll see on the lower time frames, but usually when we open up and pull back into a candle, we look for a PDA, some sort of point of resistance or support on the lower time frame, right? So you can see we've sort of done that. We've pulled back, found something, and now we're pushing lower, possibly maybe to head towards this sell side liquidity, right? But we'll see that on the daily. The main message here on the weekly is that the vision here, the outlook here is still bullish, right? So I do still see us coming up for higher prices until we start breaking these structures or respecting bearish PDAs or POIs, whatever you call them. Okay, weekly outlook bullish. Let's go to the daily. Let's see if that agrees. So here on the daily, we of course are using the same structures as the weekly. So we have this bullish dealing range from this low to this high, right? So we've got bullish structure here overall, right, externally. However, internally, you can see now that we are kind of respecting bearish PDAs, right? So here, as I said, our recent order flow is respecting bearish PDAs, and we might draw on the previous weekly low first, creating a wick on the weekly candle, right? Creating that bottom wick. So this is a weekly candle here playing out on the right. You can see we have a small wick because so far today, we have opened up and gone below that previous daily low. So here's the sort of scenario I'm imagining, which is kind of playing out. Right, last week we had a bearish week. Price took that sell side liquidity. We pulled up into this inverse fair value gap now. Right, yesterday, as I said, we opened up bullish, gone into this inverse fair value gap. Right, you can see it as resistance and support. We see it as resistance here, caused a bearish reaction. We see it as support here, caused a small bullish reaction. We broke below it and now it's causing a bearish reaction again. So like I said on that weekly candle, right, we retracted, retraced back into that bearish weekly candle here, found some resistance, and that's possibly going to push us lower towards this previous weekly low for some more sell side liquidity and deeper into that weekly PD array, right, where we've got that imbalance and order block in this zone here, right? This is the order block there. What could happen, as I said, we're overall bullish, weekly looks bullish, daily bullish structures here from this low to this high. We're having this sort of complex retrace deeper into the PDAs. Price could come lower, take this previous weekly low as sell side liquidity, and we could have a Tuesday or Wednesday low of the week, right, and then begin to push higher, right? That's a possible scenario, but at the moment in the short term I would say that we're a bit bearish, at least until this previous weekly low. We have this nice high test candle rejecting this inverse fair value gap, right? And then if we look at the lower time frames and they agree, we may be more bearish to head towards this previous weekly low as a target for the next day or two, however long it takes for us to possibly reach this zone. So that's my outlook on the daily. Overall bit bullish. I will be looking for those bullish moves if we begin to create bullish order flow, of course, right, agreeing with the weekly. But at the moment, in terms of how these daily candles are forming and what we seem to be drawn towards, I would say the previous weekly low short-term target, which may then sponsor that move higher as I've drawn out here. Let's go down to the lower time frame. Let's see what's that's looking like for us in the short term. Right, so here on the 4 hour, you can see our recent price action has all been bearish. Okay, we came down, we drew on that sell side liquidity that we saw on the daily. Price had a small SMC down here, or SMT, whatever you call it. Bit of a deeper pullback, right, after initially respecting this discount PDA here. Before taking that sell side liquidity, we've pulled back up to the premium, respected that order block here, and then price seems to be continuing bearish. Right, we had this imbalance, this bullish imbalance initially, then it was covered by a bearish imbalance, so it became a BPR. Price immediately retested that yesterday, so same as on the daily where we had that inverse fair value gap, sort of retested and rejected. So we've got this BPR retested here and rejected for price to go lower. So we're respecting PDAs to the downside, bearish PDAs, right? So bearish PDA here in this order block, came back, respected this as another bearish PDA, and we've continued moving down. So we do look clearly bearish here. We'll go down to the 1 hour now as well, where we'll have more PDAs for us to look at. So let's go down to the 1 hour. So we can see here on the 1 hour in a bit more detail the amount of bearish PDAs we are respecting here. Coming from these highs here with the 4 hour imbalance, we also had the overlapping 1 hour imbalance and order block, right, which price clearly respected up here in Asia on Monday, broke down, pulled back as we'd seen on the 4 hour with that BPR here, which we respected as bearish. We also had an overlapping 1 hour BPR, which has been respected too. Price has broken down. You can see we're now creating more bearish structures, right? So lower high, lower low, right? Just to make that clear. So bearish structures and respect of bearish PDAs again. Now you can see here, as I've written, a 1 hour M15 market maker sell model fractal. Much clearer to see because we can see again now this buy side curve here, right, that we have. And then we're going to see this sell side curve here as well, coming down, making that V shape, possibly, right, towards our downside draw on liquidity, which is that previous weekly low. Okay, so hopefully that made it clear for you, but again, it's just a triangle sort of shape, right, where we are completing that buy side curve here and that sell side curve here. Hopefully, unless we get some strong SMT at the bottom here with DXY, which we might actually. Okay, so DXY does look a tad closer to these highs maybe than EU, so we'll see if that happens, but that's something to worry about in the future. As I said, I'll be looking to play out this market maker sell model fractal, right, if we still begin to respect these bearish PDAs today. So I think the order flow is very obvious here, and in the short term our downside draw on liquidity, that previous weekly low, and we have a possible market maker sell model in play as I just showed you, right? So following that short-term daily bias, right, which looks bearish at the moment, after respecting that inverse fair value gap, 4 hour has stayed bearish as well, and the 1 hour after pulling back to this zone here, creating this buy side curve, is now starting to create a sell side curve for us to follow down to this zone here. So I hope that's really clear for you. Any questions, just let me know in the comments. So let's go down to the M15. Let's see what that looks like, if there's anything there for us in the short term for today. So on the M15, this is something I'll be looking at, right? We've got some SMC already today. DXY has already broken these lows, so some bullish strength has come back into it, but I do like how this looks. So in London open kill zone, as I've got written here, price seems to be pulling back, and we may take out these pre-London highs here, right, for some buy side liquidity. So this would be what I'm looking for today to possibly enter a position, right? So we have this pre-London high. Price is now possibly pulling back to come and take out this high for some buy side liquidity, as I've drawn here. We may draw back into this 1 hour / M15 imbalance and order block zone here. We'll see if we do that, but we take out this high, and then if we get a strong bearish reaction from there, taking out the low, giving us some further bearish order flow and reaction today, we could see a pullback. This would be more on my entry time frames. Obviously we could see a pullback to an imbalance and order block left behind, let's say this one here, and then we can look for entries to play down towards our previous weekly low. Right, so I hope that is really clear. We've got our Asia range here. Now price hasn't broken those lows. We're pulling back to draw on some buy side liquidity possibly, so I'll be looking to see what reaction we get around this zone here, right? If price has a strong bearish reaction from it, if we do, we'll have this nice strong high here because we've taken buy side liquidity before having that bearish break to the downside, that we can look for some entries to go short. So that's what I'll be looking for here, something along these lines, and hopefully we can get that today. So back up to the daily to wrap this up, so we can see the longer term picture. What we're possibly seeing here is this inverse fair value gap being respected at the moment, to have price to be pushed lower towards this previous weekly low, and then we'll reevaluate from there to see if we get any bullish order flow to follow that weekly plan higher.